I've worked these mountains for the better part of 11 years. There's a place on the far side of the Appalachian. It's not on any hiking map anymore. Used to be logging land way back, then they shut it down for ecological recovery. But the real reason folks stopped going in there, well, that's harder to explain. Most of the old-timers won't talk about it. When I first started, one of the senior rangers told me, if you hear someone call your name, don't answer. And don't go looking. The day it was late, little past midnight, when dispatch radioed me, a distress call had come in from a cabin deep past the old logging trails. The kind of place nobody was supposed to be staying in. Caller was a woman. Voice shaking so bad the dispatcher could barely understand her. All she managed to get out was, "He's hurt. Please, God, please hurry. Just panic." I grabbed my pack, hopped in the truck, and drove as far as the washed-out road would let me, then hiked the last mile under nothing but moonlight. The woods were too quiet that night. Just the crunch of my boots and my breathing. When I reached the cabin, the front door was open. No lights inside, just the dying glow of a fireplace. The first thing I saw was blood. A man lay on the floor, flat on his back, blood pooling under his head. A woman sat crouched in the corner, arms wrapped around herself, rocking back and forth. Her clothes were spattered with red. When I moved toward the man and asked her what happened, slow, calm, the way we're trained to, and she told me the first version of her story. A stranger came to her cabin saying his truck broke down. She let him use her phone. Right after he made a call, he froze, just went completely still, and his eyes rolled back, so only the whites were showing. Then he started speaking in a voice she said wasn't human. He said I was chosen, that I needed to die, that he'd make it quick. She grabbed a heavy oil camp lantern bon and hit him to escape. He fell, struck his head on the stove, and went down. That was the story she insisted on at first. Thing is, I've responded to domestic calls before. Real panic has a sound to it and a shape. This one didn't quite fit. Next morning, 2 backpackers who had been camping down trail came forward, said they heard the two arguing loudly for 10 minutes before the struggle. The woman had lied. When confronted, she finally told the second version. She and the man knew each other. They were involved in a drug deal gone bad. He believed. She'd stolen money. Things got heated. She panicked and hit him with the lantern. That version made sense, mostly, but there was one thing she didn't change. She still insisted something about him. Changed after he made that phone call. Like something else one came into him. The man died in the hospital later that night. After the paramedics took him, I stayed behind to clear the scene and catalog what I could. The lantern she used to hit him had shattered. Cheap metal frame and cracked glass scattered across the floor. But inside the base of the lantern, wedged between the metal lining and battery compartment, I found a folded piece of yellowed paper, like it had been hidden there a long time. Not a note, not English, not any writing. I recognized it was a symbol, a circle. Lines intersecting through it like a compass, marks around the edges that looked almost like letters but not quite. Later on, one of the local historians told me it looked like something used in old Appalachian warding rituals. Inscriptions meant to trap or hold something inside an object. And when that object breaks, well, you get the idea. I listened to the call. History from the man's phone. The call he made right before the change wasn't to the woman. It was to his mother, the voicemail she left after missing the call. Her voice was terrified. She said he didn't sound like himself, said his voice was wrong. Deep, ragged, like someone was forcing the words out of him. She begged him to call back. That voicemail was time-stamped. 10 minutes before the fight began, meaning whatever happened. Started before the argument, before the violence, before the lantern shattered. The case went into the books as involuntary manslaughter. The official explanation? Stress, fear, human violence. But I still think about the quiet that night. I worked as a forestry ranger in Harlan County, Kentucky, back in 2014. If you've never been out that way, it's mountains and hollows and long stretches of road. A lot of people think of Appalachia as empty, but that's not really true. People live out there. Families. Some have been there for generations. Their farms are tucked into valleys so deep, sunlight only hits the house for a couple hours a day. It was November. I was in the ranger station finishing paperwork when the call came through. A woman breathing hard, trying not to sound terrified. "There's someone outside my house," she said. He's been circling. I think he's trying to get in. My kids," and then nothing. The call just cut. I tried calling back, no answer. Now normally that'd go to county sheriff, but we were closest. And out there, every minute counts. Some of those hollows take 40 minutes to reach. If a woman was alone with her kids and someone was really trying to break in, waiting wasn't an option, so I drove. The road to that farm twisted along the base of the mountain. No lights, no guardrails. Just my truck headlights swallowed by black forest. I remember seeing the treetops shivering in the wind, like something moved through them. When I reached the house, the first thing that struck me was how alive out everything seemed. Lights glowing in every window, smoke rising from the chimney, the TV flickering inside, and the front door. Just slightly open, but there were no voices, no footsteps, no movement, just silence. I stepped inside, calling out, "Ma'am, this is Ranger Carter. You called for help?" Nothing. The living room looked lived in, warmer than mine had been in weeks. Board games on the coffee table, a coat half draped over a chair, children's drawings on the fridge. And dinner was still on the dining table, plates full, steam still rising. I swear to you, it looked like the Guinness stood up mid-meal and vanished. Not ran, not kidnapped, just gone. No overturned chairs, no signs of a struggle. I checked the back door, locked from the inside. I radioed in, said I was doing a full sweep. When I checked the bedrooms, the beds were unmade, clothes on the floor, normal family chaos. But in the kids' room, I found something that still sticks with me. On the windowsill facing the woods were little handprints, not from inside, from outside, as if someone had pressed their hands against the glass. Just watching, I'll never forget the size of those prints, too small for an adult, too strange for a child. That's when I heard something below me, a sound like scratching. Down beneath the floorboards, I found the basement door half open. When I went down, the concrete changed to dirt. And at the far end of the basement wall, there was a hole, a perfectly dug tunnel, big enough for a man to crawl through on his belly. No one told me about any tunnels, no reason any should be there. I crouched and shined my flashlight inside. The tunnel walls were smooth, packed earth. Someone had been digging for years. My radio crackled once and went dead. No signal underground. I didn't want to go in there, but the house was empty and I needed answers. So I crawled. The dirt pressed against my shoulders. I could feel roots brushing my neck. I heard something ahead of me. Breathing. Slow, wet. The tunnel opened into a little underground room. And the moment my flashlight swept across the walls, my blood ran cold. Photos, hundreds of them. The family, taken from the woods, from the windows, from the edge of the driveway. Some were taken from inside the house when they slept, when they bathed, when they cooked. Every moment of their lives recorded by someone watching. Stacks of notebooks filled with times, dates, movements, the children's school schedule, the husband's work hours, the mother's routines. Their lives mapped out like prey. And in the corner was a filthy blanket. Food cans, a lantern. Someone had been living down there and under their home for who knows how long. I whispered, "Hello?" And the breathing stopped. Not silenced, just paused. Like whatever was down there was listening back. That's when I heard, just behind me in the tunnel, a voice, hoarse, broken, too close. "Who the hell are you?" I turned, flashlight trembling. Something moved in the tunnel. Fast. And then he crawled out. Not walked, not stood. Crawled. Like a dog. Bones jutting under his skin, hair matted, eyes wide and starved. His mouth hung open wide, and when he saw me, his teeth clicking together, I shouted at him to stop, to stay back, but he just kept crawling forward. Faster, hands slapping the dirt, knees scraping raw. I fired. The sound exploded in that tiny space. And he dropped. He was on the floor, dead, but the breathing sound didn't stop, because that's when I realized that wasn't the sound of one person. It was coming from deeper down the tunnel, multiple breaths. I backed out of that place so fast I barely remember getting back through the tunnel. By the time I stumbled into the basement and slammed that door shut, I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. Sheriff's deputies arrived an hour later. They identified the man I shot. He was a drifter who'd been suspected in break-ins across 3 states. They said he'd been living under that house for at least 2 years. Maybe longer, but the family? The mother, the 2 children. They were never found. No sign they ever left the property. Search teams combed miles of woods, caves, abandoned mines. Nothing. It was like they had been pulled into the earth. The man I killed, he was examined, processed, autopsied. But I need you to understand something. When I shot him, he wasn't trying to escape. He was trying to drag me deeper. I left the Ranger Service 2 years later. I don't know where the family ended up. Not exactly. I've been a park ranger for most of my adult life. 20 years, give or take a season. Long enough for the forest to start feeling like home. Long enough for the quiet to get inside your bones. And long enough to learn that silence is never really empty. There's always something listening. This all took place in the Appalachian foothills, though I won't name which park. Some of you know these mountains. Old mountains. Older than the bones of the earth, some say. And in places where the ridges sit heavy and the hollers run deep, there are things older than people, too. Folks who grew up around here don't go into the dark just for fun. They know better. Outsiders don't. I didn't fully understand that myself, not back then. This particular park had a rotation system for campsites. Each cluster of sites stayed open for a season or 2. Then we'd close that area and let the forest heal. Simple routine work. Just enough to fill a day without weighing on you. This was at the end of a hard winter. Deep, cold, long nights, snow thick enough to swallow sound. The kind of winter where nothing moves except what's hungry enough to survive it. I got assigned to go evaluate the sites, see which could open for the summer crowd, and which needed more time to breathe. I set out before daybreak, boots sinking into thawing mud, air sharp with the scent of wet pine and meltwater. I didn't expect anything unusual. The first site was clean enough. A few branches down, nothing serious. But on my way toward the next cluster, I saw something down in the valley. Just a hint of color where there shouldn't have been any. Blue tarps maybe, scraps of tent fabric. Looked like an unauthorized campsite. Happens more than you'd think. Folks decide rules aren't for them. Head out into the woods, leave trash, cut trees for firewood, and sometimes, if they're drunk enough, leave a fire smoldering. My job usually was to hike in, lecture them, and haul the garbage out like a disappointed parent. But as I got closer, something felt wrong. The forest was quiet. Now listen to me closely here, because this is important. The woods are never silent. Not truly. Even in stillness, there's the creak of branches, the click of beetles, the distant rush of water, the whistle of wind through needles. But here, everything had gone still. I stopped walking, just listened. Nothing, just cold air and the slow pound of my own heartbeat. I thumbed the strap on my holster and drew my Glock, chambering around. I never liked guns, never wanted to use one, but I knew enough to listen when the woods went quiet. I walked the last 100 yards slow. The camp had been torn apart, and I mean ruined, tents shredded like tissue, coolers smashed and scattered, clothes ripped into strips and fluttering from the tree branches overhead. And blood, so much blood, pooled in the dirt, on the walls of what was left of the tents, soaked into the leaves, streaks dragging away toward the tree line, more than one, all headed in slightly different directions, as if whatever did the dragging didn't care to keep its victims together. But there were no bodies, just pieces, tufts of hair, a scrap of scalp, a handprint smeared across a rock, fingers too long and bent at a strange angle from how hard it had clung to life. I froze where I stood, not breathing, not blinking, just watching. You spend enough time in the woods and you learn the difference between animal violence and something else. Bears maul. They crush, tear, feed. Coyotes and feral dogs tear and eat too. But this looked like rage. Something that wanted to destroy. Something that wanted to erase. There was no chewing, no tracks, no prints at all, just absence. I radioed headquarters, told them we had what looked like a mass casualty site. Told them to send backup and medics. I didn't mention the part where I already knew there was nobody left to save. You don't lose that much blood and walk away. While I waited, I just stood there listening to the silence that felt like it was listening back. Backup arrived 20 minutes later. Medics, too. They were wasting their time. One of the rookies threw up the moment he saw it. I don't blame him. I got sent back to headquarters to file a report. The chief, normally a man made of granite, locked his office door behind us and sat me down. His hands trembled as I spoke. He asked me to describe everything, exactly, no embellishment. I did. When I finished, he just stared at me. No questions. No writing. Just a long, empty stare. That was the last time I saw him. By morning, we had a new manager. One that didn't talk much. One that seemed to already know something. He ordered a controlled burn of the entire campsite valley. Just scorched it. Burned it clean. And then he moved all future campsites closer to headquarters, within the range of floodlights. That's when things shifted. We were ordered to carry long guns at all times. Shotguns loaded with solid slugs. AR-15s with 30-round hollow point mags. Not normal issue. Not legal issue. This wasn't about stopping people. This was about stopping something bigger. Then came the cameras. We placed them out along the ridges. The manager reviewed the footage alone. I wasn't there when he saw what he saw, but I heard him scream all the way down the hallway. Not startled. Not scared. Terrified. He spent the night making phone calls. I don't know who he called, but I know it wasn't anyone local. By morning, he was a different man. He looked like he hadn't slept in a month. He ordered the floodlights installed around the station, around the campsites, around the tree line. He shut the park down at sundown. No exceptions. Guests complained. They always do. They don't understand the woods. They think nothing bad can happen if they brought enough marshmallows. The first time someone tried to break the rules, it was a group of college kids who hiked past the posted boundaries and set up a campfire on a ridge. I could see their fire from the station as the sun went down. Normally we'd go up, find them, kick them out, but when I called the manager, he just said, "No, do not go up there. Do not call out to them. Do not try to warn them." And then he gave me a number, not 911, not the sheriff, a number that answered on the first ring. A voice asked for my park name, then said, "Monitor. Report any developments. Do not engage. I sat there the whole night, watching their campfire fade, listening to the woods breathe. When morning came, the fire was burned out. The tent collapsed. Their car still in the lot. The manager hiked up alone, carrying 2 rifles and a jerry can of gasoline. I tried to stop him. He didn't even see me, just kept walking. Smoke rose shortly after. Then vans pulled into the lot. Matte gray government plates. Department of Interior Special Response. Words that mean absolutely nothing officially. A dozen men in unmarked gear went up the ridge. When they came back, they weren't carrying the kids, they were carrying the manager, zip-tied, screaming, ranting about how we can't contain it and it's attracted to the light. They sedated him and took everything. Our hard drives, cameras, reports, physical files, stripped the station clean like it had never existed. After that, things only got worse. We were no longer allowed to patrol at night, couldn't leave the building. We sat under floodlights so bright they made the night behind them look blacker, the kind of black that feels deep, the kind of black that feels like eyes are open in it. One night, it was my shift. I remember sitting there, shotgun on my lap, listening to the hum of the lights, praying they'd hum all night. Power outages in the mountains aren't rare, but that night I prayed like a preacher, because I could feel something sitting right beyond the light line, watching. When it was the manager's turn the next night, he called me at 3:07 a.m. I'll never forget his voice. They're here. The light drew them. Oh God, gunshots, screaming, then nothing. I called the number. They told me only one thing. Do not attempt to assist. The park is now closed. Next morning, the station was empty. No blood, no broken glass, just an empty coffee mug still warm on the desk. They shut the park down. Public reason: ecological stabilization and wildfire prevention. Real reason: the mountain had woken up, and something old was moving. They transferred me hundreds of miles west. I thought that meant safety. But my new park has rules too. No flashlights at night. No leaving the cabins after dusk. No exceptions. I asked why. Nobody answered. But sometimes, when I'm on night shift, I hear something moving in the tree line. Something slow and deliberate. Something tall, and the silence comes back. The same silence I heard that morning in the valley. So if you camp in the Appalachians, anywhere along those blue ridges where the mountains bing beast and do not stay after dark,